I think it was the day of Desperation. There was a big ACT UP demonstration where we were all going to go into Grand Central Station and lie down in the middle of rush hour and block the terminal. And the night before, all of these affinity groups had planned to do these separate actions, either during the day or the night before the action. And I got involved with this, with Action Tours, and they had planned to try and invade all 3 television studios during the nightly news, as well as the PBS network. MacNeil Lehrer report. And so my group had planned to take NBC News and CBS News and ABC. I guess we never got into ABC, and we never got into NBC, but we did get into the CBS Nightly News with Dan Rather. It was myself and Dale Peck, who's also a writer, and Daryl Bowman, and the 3 of us went into the studios way, way west on 57th Street, the CBS studios. And we walked down the hall. It was in the middle of the war in the Gulf. There were all these people around. It was quite a mad scene. They didn't even notice us walking in our business suits, trying to look like television executives. And we strolled down the hall with our fake IDs and stood by the side and waited for the show to start. And as soon as Dan Rather said, "Good evening," Dale and Daryl and I ran on the set and jumped in front of the camera. And what happened was that my face pops into the screen, into the lower left-hand side of the screen for about 3 seconds. I saw it later on video. Just John Weir's head going, "Eep," and we were chanting, "Fight A's, not Arabs."
Here's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening.
Fight A's, not Arabs.
We're going to take a break for a commercial just now. We'll break for a commercial. Thank you very much. I want to apologize to you for the way the broadcast came on the air tonight. There were some rude people here. They tried to stage a demonstration. They've been ejected from the studio, but our apologies for the way we began. Our coverage of the Gulf War will continue after these messages. We're sorry about that. I had a bit of an interruption here in the broadcast. We're going to take things right from the...
And then they threw us in jail. And of course I didn't see any of this at the time. I didn't find out until later that I'd actually been on the air. And I got home that night, and there were a whole bunch of messages on my phone machine, all kinds of people saying, "Congratulations, John, you did a good job. We saw you on Dan Rather. It was great. That was your head. Yay, go, go." And there were 2 messages from my mother, and one from my father, and one from my brother. My mother said, "John, I can't believe you would do this to your father. I'm very upset with you. You don't know what this means to your father." Click. And my father, "John, this is your father. Call me tomorrow." Click. Then my brother, "Hey, John, what is it? You turning into Larry Kramer or something?" And then my mother again, "John, I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, but I just don't think it's a good thing." Click. And it turns out that, as a matter of fact, my father works for television. My father works for NBC TV, which is a rival network. I was on CBS. My father's job at NBC TV, he's retired now, but for 35 years, his job was basically to take care of all. He was basically the vice president of Cut to Black. When activists invade your studio, he was like in charge of technical foul-ups, and whenever anything went wrong, they called my father. So essentially, when I leaped in front of the TV camera, it was John leaping into Dad's TV studio and Dad pulling the plug. So he took it personally. And my mother's father ran a radio station in Denver. He was a manager of the radio station in Denver during the war. And my brother is a video editor. He edits for NBC Nightly News. He did at the time, and he edited at the Olympics in Barcelona and Seoul in Korea, and he has Emmy Awards. And it was basically as if I had violated the family temple by running into this TV studio. And they were all very flipped out. And they had this family meeting where I was summoned. It happened to be my 31st birthday, in fact. And we met. They didn't take me anywhere fancy. They took me to a little diner in the bottom of the RCA building where my father works. This cheesy diner. And they sprang for a tuna fish sandwich. And the 3 of them sat there looking very grim. My father had all this identification around his neck, very thick, not his usual identification. And I said, "What's all that?" And he said, "This is because of you." And I said, "Oh. This is the John Weir honorary identification badge now." And my mother said, "John, I know that it's important. You have to do what you feel, but I don't understand why you spit in the face of your entire family heritage." And my brother was glum and grim. And my mother said, "John, yeah, I mean, you grew up in the 60s. I lived in the 60s. You know what it was like, this kind of activism? I mean, it didn't work for Jane Fonda, and it's not going to work for you." And that was sort of pretty much the last of our family encounter. Everyone went on their way, and then about a week later, my father summoned me to his office in the RCA building. He works on the 26th floor, and I went there feeling like a pariah because I grew up around TV studios and I knew exactly how I had offended him by invading his sanctuary. So I expected the guards to throw me out as soon as they saw me, but everyone was friendly and said hi. I went up to his office and I sat down at his desk. And my father's sort of an imposing man, bald, about 40 pounds overweight. Has a very low resonant voice, which he dropped an octave to talk to me. He's reading the New York Times, and there was some article in the New York Times about as many people had died of AIDS as had died during the Vietnam War. And he's reading this and he looks up and says, "Did your people plant this story?" And I said, "My people?" And then he showed me the article and I said, "No, no, no." And he said, And he said, "Do you realize that Saddam Hussein probably saw that broadcast? This is still in the middle of the war." And I said, "Uh-huh." And he said, And then he said, "Well, you're a terrorist, you know that?" And I said, "Oh, no, I guess I didn't really know that." And he lectured some more. And I don't have much of a rapport with my father. We don't really ever talk about very much. But it was clear that I had finally reached him, for once in my life, because I'd communicated with him in the way he understood. I was on TV and he could get that. And he got it, but it wasn't just that he got it. He kind of looked at me like, this is my son. He must have had a reason to do this. And we had a little discussion about that article in the Times and about how it's true that more people had died of AIDS than had died in Vietnam. And we talked for about, I don't know, half an hour. More conversation than I've had with my father probably in the last 10 years. And he finally got up from behind his desk. He said, "Well, you know you're my son, don't you?" And I said, "Yes." And then he embraced me. And I thought, he gets it, and a lot of the time I think, I've been an intermittent AIDS activist. I haven't done a lot of work recently, and I was active for a while, but then I haven't been, and I have various kinds of despair about it, and I wonder what good that particular action did. Jumping in front of a TV camera seemed like, in some respect, I was just gratifying my own need to be angry with my father. But I did have the sense, in the moment that he spoke to me, that he understood, that it was the first time where he thought to himself, "Oh, he must have a reason for doing this. Oh, look, 50,000 people are dead. This must be a problem." And I guess I felt like that was the best that I could hope for. I thought, well, if I could just reach one person, and that person happens to be my father, then it's been worth it.
CBS Evening News surprised Dan Rather and everyone else. Just as the program was starting, 3 members of the AIDS activist group ACT UP disrupted things. Eric Shawn reports.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. We're going to take a break for a commercial just now.
It was a surprising beginning for Dan Rather's coverage of the Persian Gulf War. As the CBS News started, chanting AIDS activists disrupted the newscast as a protest against the fighting.
We're going to take a break for a commercial just now.
Several members of ACT UP, an anti-AIDS activist group, were arrested. CBS believes they entered the studio by using fake CBS IDs. ACT UP has staged many protests for more government funding against the disease, but this was the first time they managed to pull off such a live televised stunt.
We're sorry about that. I had a bit of an interruption here in the broadcast. We're going to take things right from the top. Saddam Hussein has...
The war is here.
An ACT UP spokesman defended the protest.
Is this a rather immature or silly way to bring your message across to try to help your cause?
No, we think that spending hundreds of billions of dollars bombing people on another continent is an immature and silly way to bring a cause to the televisions of this country.
Besides the CBS protesters, 7 others were arrested at PBS for disrupting the MacNeil report. All were charged with trespassing.
This is not the first time the CBS Evening News has been disrupted by a protester. Once, when Walter Cronkite was anchoring, a studio guest streaked across camera. That incident prompted a clampdown in CBS security, which will no doubt follow in other stations across the city as a result of this ACT UP protest. In Manhattan, I'm Eric Shawn, Fox News, Channel 5.